Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered why every little jab or rejection feels like it cuts so deep? What if the real test of strength isn't avoiding pain, but learning how to rise above it? And what if silence itself could become your most powerful weapon? Every jab, every rejection once broke you, but survival demands evolution. The strongest version of you isn't numb, it's selective. You begin to master your emotions instead of suppressing them. You stop giving others the weapon to control your peace. When you train yourself to respond without flinching, the world loses its power to wound you, and you gain the strength to rise untouched. Soon, I'll show you how to train your mind to stay calm, unshaken, and unhurt no matter what happens. You cannot be broken unless you allow it. You were never born fragile. You were born with a mind that commands the body, not the other way around. Yet somewhere along the way, you started reacting to life like a leaf in the wind. Every glare, every careless word, knocking you off balance. But ask yourself, can anyone truly hurt you unless you give them permission? That's the trap, believing your peace belongs to someone else. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is often a choice made quietly, moment by moment. In how you respond lies your power. When a man controls his response, he controls the outcome. When he doesn't, he becomes a puppet. The moment you decide nothing can touch your peace without your permission, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start shaping it. So how do you act unhurt even when the world throws its worst? First, stop reacting in the heat of the moment. Let silence be your armor. Let time do the talking. A man who pauses before he responds owns every room he enters. Picture this: someone mocks you in front of others. Your old self would flare, defend, explain. But now you smile, quietly, calmly. You give them nothing to feed on. That's silence. That's power. And ask yourself, why rush to defend your worth to those who don't see it? Why waste energy on those who drain you? Every time you react, you reinforce their power over you. Every time you remain composed, you build an inner strength no one else can see. The strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He's the one who could speak, but chooses not to. You become that man not by denying pain, but by refusing to be ruled by it. What you ignore, you eventually outgrow. Every insult, every rejection, every cold shoulder once burned you. But then you realize the tension is fuel. What you feed grows, and what you starve fades away. When you learn to ignore what once tore you apart, you begin to rise above it. That isn't indifference, it's evolution. You've been taught that not fighting back means weakness. Yet silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom wrapped in discipline. The oak doesn't tremble with every gust of wind. It stands tall, still, unshaken. But how do you grow that stillness? By examining what truly matters. Not every comment deserves a reaction. Not every battle is worth the wound. Discipline begins when you conserve your energy for the fights that build character, not those that only feed pride. Picture this: someone spreads lies about you behind your back. Every part of you wants to strike back, yet instead, you keep building. You keep showing up. You let time reveal the truth, because it always does. Have you noticed the more you respond, the deeper you're dragged into cycles that weaken you? But when you ignore the noise, you rise above it. That isn't escape, it's elevation. And from that height, you gain perspective. So when your emotions push for reaction, pause and ask, will this matter tomorrow? Will this decision feed my future, or just my ego? Most times, the answer will guide you towards silence. And in that silence, you'll uncover an unshakable self. Your reaction is the real enemy. It isn't the insult that breaks you, it's the reaction that follows. You cannot control the world, but you can always control your response. That's where your true power lies, not in changing others, but in mastering yourself. You've seen how quickly a man loses his strength the moment he reacts on impulse. One careless word, one burst of anger, and years of respect can vanish. The truth is, no one remembers the insult. They remember how you responded. So how do you remain calm when every part of you wants to strike back? You train like a soldier preparing for battle. You rehearse restraint in the small moments. When someone interrupts you, breathe. When someone disagrees, listen. When someone attacks, observe. These are your drills. Picture this: you're at a gathering, and someone mocks your work. You could snap, but instead you look at them calmly, nod, and say nothing. Everyone expects an explosion, but they witness control. In that moment, you plant an image of being unbreakable in every mind watching. Do you react from pride or from purpose, from fear or from vision? Those who live with vision don't waste energy on petty battles. They know every reaction costs something, and they choose not to squander their wealth of energy. If you want to rise, train your mind to pause. See beyond the moment and ask, is this battle worth my dignity? When you begin choosing your responses instead of giving them away, you start winning, silently, steadily, with authority. Every time you flinch, you surrender ground. Mentally, emotionally, or physically, you send a message, I am not ready. And life, like a strict teacher, will test you again and again until you stop flinching. Until you stand tall, take the blow, and move forward as if nothing touched you. There's a difference between being numb and being unshaken. The unshaken man still feels, but he refuses to be owned by those feelings. That is the key, not denial, but dominance over emotion. Why does this matter? Because your enemy isn't always the outside world. Often, it's your own nervous system, your habits, your trained responses to fear, discomfort, or challenge. Every flinch is a muscle memory built from past weakness, and now it's time to rewire it. So how do you stop flinching? You expose yourself on purpose. Walk into discomfort. Speak even when your voice trembles. Hold eye contact even when uncertainty weighs on you. Most importantly, stand your ground when the world expects you to retreat. Imagine this. You face rejection again. Another door slams shut. Instead of shrinking, you square your shoulders, take a breath, and knock on the next door. No pause, no sigh, just forward movement. That's how flinching dies, starved of attention. Ask yourself, how many moments have you lost to hesitation? How many chances slipped away while you flinched? Enough. The time has come to stop ducking and start standing. The next time life swings at you, don't move. Smile, and let the world see what a calm mind can endure. Learn to be calm when no one else is. In every room, there's always one man who sees clearly. Not because he knows all the answers, not because his voice is the loudest, but because his mind is still. In a world rushing to speak, to argue, to be seen, he does something rare. He waits. His calmness cuts through chaos like a lighthouse in the fog. People may not fully understand it, but they feel it. And in time, they follow it. Calmness in a noisy, panicked world is a kind of greatness all its own. You were never meant to mirror the madness around you. That is the path of the ordinary man. He panics when others panic, speaks just to fill silence, and lets the room dictate his emotions. But your journey is different. Your power begins not when you conquer others, but when you conquer your inner storm. When everything around you spins, and yet you remain steady, that's when clarity truly begins. But let's not pretend it's easy. How does a man stay calm when every part of him wants to lash out, break down, or escape? It starts with recognition. You must be honest about the war inside you. Feel the tension rise, but instead of becoming it, observe it. Breathe deeper, lean back, and refuse to be baited by the noise. Victory doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from seeing clearer. And no man can see clearly while drowning in his own reaction. Imagine sitting in a heated meeting. Accusations fly. Pride fills the room like fire. Everyone scrambles to prove themselves right. And yet you remain silent. Not because you're passive, but because you're waiting, watching, measuring. Then, at the right moment, you speak a single sentence, and the room falls silent. That is the power of calm. It doesn't push. It pulls. It commands attention not through noise, but through weight. Think of the times you joined the storm, when anger drove your words, when you reacted too quickly. And what did it cost you? A relationship, a decision, your peace. Those weren't failures of intellect. They were failures of calm. You never needed more knowledge. You needed more silence within. From now on, train yourself. When pressure rises, pause. When insult comes, smile. When you want to yell, breathe. Let others break themselves trying to be heard. Be the one who doesn't flinch, the one who stays steady when no one else can. Calmness isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's power. It's leadership. So when the next storm arrives, and it will, ask yourself one thing. Will I join it, or will I rise above it? In every room, there is always one man who sees clearly. Let that man be you. Pain doesn't mean you're losing. You've been conditioned to flinch at the first sign of pain, to retreat, to believe that if it hurts, something must be wrong. The world whispers that comfort is the goal, that ease equals success. But what if that is the greatest lie you've ever believed? What if pain isn't punishment, but preparation? What if the ache in your body, your heart, or your spirit isn't a warning to stop, but a signal to keep going? The man who rises is not the one who hides from pain, nor the one waiting for life to soften. He is the one who walks into discomfort and chooses to see it differently. He trains his mind to reinterpret what others fear. While most see pain as suffering, he sees it as shaping. Others collapse under the weight. He builds muscle. Others complain. He works, not because he enjoys it, but because he understands it. He knows pain has a purpose. But how do you act unhurt when your insides are screaming, when your back tightens, your eyes burn, and your heart feels crushed under failure? You don't deny it. You look through it. You remind yourself pain is not permanent. It is not a prison sentence. It's a message. It says you're alive. You're no longer coasting. You're becoming. Imagine this. You're chasing something bigger than yourself, a goal that truly matters. The hours are long. The pressure is heavy. Your muscles ache. Your energy drains. And yet, instead of folding, you rise taller. You straighten your spine and embrace the strain. Why? Because now you understand this is not the end of you. It's the making of you. The very pain that once made you doubt your path now becomes the proof that you're on it. When understood, pain becomes a sacred fire. It burns away the weaker version of yourself. The quitter, the complainer, the coward, all of them fade. What remains is forged in endurance, solid and steady, capable of carrying what softer men cannot. That is who you are becoming. Not just someone who survives pain, but someone who uses it, who turns every bruise into a blueprint and every scar into strength. So the question is no longer, how do I escape this pain? But rather, what is this pain shaping in me? What will emerge once I outlast this moment? If comfort had built you, you would still be stuck in the same place. But pain has a way of breaking the shell you outgrew long ago. Don't run from it. Don't resent it. Welcome it. Because on the other side of pain is not just a stronger man, but an unshakable one. Stop needing to be understood. One of the deepest and most invisible forms of pain is the ache of being misunderstood. You speak from the heart. You reveal your dreams. You try to explain your stillness. And still, they look at you as if you're speaking another language. You make decisions aligned with your purpose, yet they see rebellion. You choose silence, and they call it pride. So you defend, you explain, you over-explain, becoming a translator of your own soul just to earn a nod of approval. But what does it cost you? Slowly, you trade clarity for validation. You lose the sharpness of your vision, trying to be seen through blurry lenses. The truth is simple, though hard to accept. The man who needs to be understood by everyone will always be controlled by them. His peace becomes fragile, shattered by a raised eyebrow, a dismissive laugh, or the sting of being overlooked. But greatness has never come from consensus. It has always come from conviction. Not everyone will see what you see. Not everyone is meant to. Some are blind to your frequency because they were never wired to receive your signal. And that's okay. You're not here to beg for understanding. You're here to build. Instead of chasing approval, chase consistency. Let your actions speak with such discipline that they leave a trail of evidence in your work, in your craft, in your silence. You do not need to convince people of your worth. You need to become undeniable. That doesn't come from shouting louder, but from walking straighter, quietly, steadily. But how do you let go of that pull, that childlike urge to be seen, appreciated, praised? You replace it with something stronger, certainty. You begin to value peace more than applause. You stop trying to prove, and you start trying to progress. You remind yourself that one day, your results will speak what your voice never could. One day, your presence will say it all. Until then, let your silence be the storm that builds everything behind the curtain. Imagine this. You're walking a lonely path. Friends drift away. Family doubts you. Your ideas are mocked. Your potential dismissed. You feel invisible. And yet, each morning you show up. You keep working. You keep building. While they gossip, you grind. While they laugh, you learn. One day, the house you built in silence will stand so tall that they'll come knocking, asking, "How did you do it?" And you'll smile, not with arrogance, but with peace. Because the answer was always there. Hidden in the quiet, in the consistency, in the refusal to quit just because no one clapped. So ask yourself honestly, Are you building for applause, or are you building for legacy? Applause fades. Legacy lasts. Applause is given. Legacy is earned. If legacy is your aim, you must learn to walk without needing company, to lead without needing agreement. You must trust the path even when no one else does. And that kind of man doesn't beg to be understood. He simply becomes the man the world eventually has no choice but to understand. Silence is not weakness, it's mastery. When someone offends you, every muscle tightens, your heart races. Your mind flashes with comebacks, sharp retorts formed in seconds. You feel the sting of their words, and instinct screams to defend your dignity, to retaliate, to assert control. But the greatest strength you can show in that moment is to do nothing. To say nothing. Not from fear, not from weakness, but from discipline-born power. Because silence, when chosen, is not the absence of response. It's the most strategic response of all. It's the refusal to be dragged into someone else's chaos. The man who can stay silent in the face of insult is not passive. He is in command. The man who lashes out, screams back, and tries to prove his worth through volume is still ruled by ego. But the one who stands calm, who lets the moment pass without reaction, has mastered something far more rare, the ability to govern himself. And yet, you've been told that if you don't speak up, you'll be seen as weak. You've been told that if you don't defend yourself, you'll be trampled on. But that belief comes from those who confuse noise with respect. Respect isn't earned by being the loudest in the room. It's commanded by how little you're moved by the noise around you. The man who speaks less is often the one who sees more. He doesn't react because he doesn't need to. His value runs too deep to be shaken by the shallow waves of other people's opinions. But how do you reach that level of silence? How do you remain still when everything inside you wants to explode? It begins with understanding that silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. Speaking in anger is like firing an arrow blindfolded. You may hit something, but rarely what matters. And often, the damage caused is worse than the offense itself. Learn to pause, not out of submission, but out of strategy. Learn to ask, does this response serve my purpose or only my emotion? Picture this. You're standing in a crowd, and someone tries to humiliate you. Eyes turn, waiting for your reaction. The world expects heat, drama, and explosion. But instead, you pause. You breathe. You nod slightly, maybe even smile, and walk away. That choice, that silence, echoes louder than any sharp word ever could. Why? Because it's unexpected. Because it shows you don't need the fight to win. Because it proves you're untouchable. Not because no one attacks, but because their attacks can't reach you. And in that moment, you become the man others see differently. Not because you demanded it, but because you didn't have to. That kind of restraint creates gravity. The room leans toward you. They begin to see you're not governed by the moment. You own it. Now ask yourself, how many of your past regrets came from things you didn't say? Likely very few. But how many came from words spoken in haste, in anger, in pride? Too many to count. And how many victories, quiet, internal, dignified, were born in the moments you said nothing? In the times you let the insult pass and chose instead to keep your power, your presence, your purpose. Understand this. The world plays games. It baits, it provokes, it thrives on reaction. But once you master silence, you stop playing by its rules. You redefine the rules. You become unpredictable, unshakable. People no longer know how to manipulate you because you've taken back control, not of them, but of yourself. So when someone tries to pull you into their storm, stay rooted in your center. Let them shout. Let them assume. Let them reveal who they are. And you, let your silence reveal who you've become. Emotional control is the greatest wealth. Many men spend their lives chasing what they can hold in their hands. Money, admiration, approval, status. They grind, they hustle, they measure their worth by what others can see. But in doing so, they overlook the most valuable treasure of all, emotional control. The ability to feel everything and yet not be ruled by any of it. That, more than anything, separates the man who merely survives from the man who truly owns his life. Because here's the truth. The undisciplined man is always a slave. No matter how wealthy he is, no matter how respected, if his mood can be hijacked by an insult, if his peace can be shattered by a comment, if his mind collapses under the weight of his own impulses, he is not free. He is controlled by anger, by fear, by desire. And no crown in the world can cover that kind of weakness. But the man who commands his emotions cannot be shaken. He can walk through fire with grace, through betrayal with clarity, through temptation with stillness. Why? Because his feelings may rise, but they do not reign. He is not cold, and he is not numb. He understands that emotion is a signal, not a master. Not every urge deserves a response. Not every wave demands surrender, and often silence holds more power than reaction. So how do you begin the process of emotional mastery? It doesn't start with suppression, it begins with observation. When the heat rises in your chest, when the old instinct to lash out ignites, don't rush to bury it. See it, feel it, name it. Stand with it like a man staring at a wild animal. Not to run, not to provoke, but to understand. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Is it a signal I need, or just noise I've been trained to obey? You may be surprised how much of your emotional life is simply habit. You became angry not because it was necessary, but because you always got angry in that situation. You felt hurt not because you were truly wounded, but because pride was conditioned to expect something else. When emotion is unconscious, it becomes a script you never wrote. But once you see it, you can rewrite it. Picture this. Someone makes a decision that affects you unfairly. It wasn't right, it wasn't just. The old you would have stormed in, slammed the table, demanded retribution. This time, you stop. You take a breath. You don't deny what you feel, but you hold it. You analyze. You think, what's my goal? What's my best move? And then you act. Not from heat, but from direction. That moment, that shift from impulsive to intentional, is the beginning of emotional wealth. And like financial wealth, it compounds over time. Because when you stop wasting energy on reaction, you start building. The energy once lost in arguments is now spent creating. The hours once consumed by resentment are reinvested into discipline, focus, and presence. Relationships that once cracked under emotional storms now deepen through your calm. Emotional control doesn't make you cold. It makes you precise, dangerous in the right way. Like a swordsman who only draws his blade when he must, never when provoked by noise. Ask yourself honestly, what is emotion costing you? How many mornings have been ruined by yesterday's anger? How many opportunities lost because pride refused to listen? How many bridges burned because your tongue moved faster than your mind? And what if you had all that time, all that energy back? What if, instead of draining yourself through reaction, you invested it into building something greater? Your focus, your skill, your character. You are not here to be a slave to every passing feeling. You are here to direct it, not suppress it, but channel it. Let anger sharpen into discipline. Let sorrow transform into wisdom. Let frustration ignite fuel. Because when you stop letting the world dictate your emotional weather, you become the one who sets the temperature in every room you enter. Choose control. Choose presence. Don't mistake noise for truth. Don't let someone's ignorance become your burden. And don't fight every battle just because it appears. Save your fire for what builds you, not what burns you. When you master your emotions, you master your time, your choices, your relationships, your future. You become the man who doesn't merely respond to life, he leads it. Not by force, but by command. And that is the rarest kind of power. The kind no one can see, but everyone feels. The kind no one can give you, and no one can take away. Never show the world where it hurts you. Walk into a room, and before you even speak, your body has already spoken. Your presence, your posture, your expression, all declare something louder than words. You reveal your strength or your struggle without even meaning to. Most of the world is watching, not to help, but to measure, to see where to press, where you're strong, and more importantly, where you're not. If you flinch, frown, stammer, sigh too loudly, or over-explain your worth, you've just handed them a map to your weakness. You've told them, without meaning to, exactly where to strike. Pain itself is not weakness, that's a myth. But putting your pain on display for those who don't care, that is. The man who keeps his pain sacred doesn't become less human. He becomes more powerful. Because he isn't leaking emotion into places that will never honor it. He isn't giving ammunition to those who will never understand what it cost him just to show up today. He protects his inner world like a fortress, not to isolate, but to preserve what matters. So how does a man act as if nothing hurts him, even when something does? It begins with discipline, not of the body, but of the face. You train your expression the way a soldier trains with his weapon, with control, precision, and purpose. Your face is not a mirror for the world to read every feeling. It is a shield, a message, a decision. Not everyone earns the right to know what you feel. Not everyone is worthy of seeing where you ache. Imagine this. You're in a meeting, and a colleague suddenly takes credit for something you built. Your blood heats, your mind sharpens, your ego begs to respond. But your face stays calm, composed. And that stillness speaks louder than any outburst ever could. Because it tells the room, I am in control. And that control commands respect, not through fear, but through restraint. Through that rare, unsettling calm that powerful men carry when others would erupt. This isn't denial. It's not about numbing yourself or pretending you don't feel. You do feel. You simply choose where, when, and with whom to release that weight. You refuse to make the battlefield of public life your place of healing. You separate the two. You hold your pain in private, tend to it in solitude, or share it only with the rare souls who've earned your vulnerability. But not in the marketplace of pride, politics, and posturing. Not where sharks circle. Not where eyes hunt for cracks to exploit. Ask yourself, how many times have you revealed a wound only to see it twisted back against you? How many moments of emotional honesty led not to understanding, but to judgment or even mockery? Not because your pain wasn't real, but because the listener wasn't ready to receive it. You showed your soul to someone looking for a target, not a truth. And when that happens enough, you learn that openness is not always a virtue. Sometimes it's a liability, especially with the wrong audience. So you build a new kind of strength. One not of silence, but of control. You don't hide, you protect. You don't suppress, you channel. The result? You walk taller. You hold your head not in arrogance, but in composure. You no longer let the world see where you bleed, because you've learned that power thrives in mystery and dignity lives in restraint. You don't owe your emotional weather to every passing face. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Because when no one knows where you hurt, no one can use it against you. That changes everything. You stop playing defense. You stop scrambling to explain yourself. You stop giving your energy away to those unworthy of your thoughts. You become that rare kind of man whose calm unsettles, whose silence commands, and whose stillness speaks louder than complaint ever could. You are no longer read like an open book. You've become a closed vault. Only those with the keys of loyalty, respect, and trust gain access to what's inside. So walk into every room as the man you are becoming. Let your posture speak with quiet certainty. Let your presence radiate composure. Let your face remain unreadable, steady, and calm. Because behind that stillness is a fire, not chaotic, but contained. And when the day comes that you choose to speak, to reveal, or to open up, it will be on your terms. Not because you were provoked, not because you were weak, but because you decided it was time. That is not hiding, that is mastery. And in a world that feeds on emotional exposure, the man who owns his silence owns the room. Approval is the most expensive addiction. You convince yourself you need their praise, the applause, the nods, the smiles that say, you're doing great. You start believing that if they approve, you must be right. If they celebrate you, you must be on the right path. But here's the truth you rarely hear. The more you chase approval, the more you give away your authority. It begins subtly. You adjust your tone to avoid offense. You second-guess your instincts to prevent misunderstanding. You shape your actions like clay in their hands, molding yourself into something safer, more acceptable, but less true. And before long, you're not living your life. You're performing theirs. You convince yourself that if they approve, you must be right. If they celebrate you, you must be on the right path. But here's the truth you rarely hear. The more you chase approval, the more you hand over your authority. It begins small. You adjust your tone to avoid offense. You second-guess your instincts so others won't misunderstand. You shape your actions like clay in their hands, molding yourself into something more palatable, but less true. And before long, you're not living your life. You're performing theirs. There's a quiet slavery in being liked. A man addicted to approval will always be controlled by it. He becomes like a compass with a broken needle, always spinning, always searching, never centered. He softens his words so no one is unsettled. He bites his tongue when truth begs to be spoken. He laughs when he doesn't want to, agrees when he shouldn't, and shrinks when he was meant to stand tall. Until one day, he looks in the mirror and sees a stranger staring back. A man whose edges have been worn down by too many compromises, whose fire has been smothered by the damp cloth of collective comfort. So how do you break free from that craving? The deep, almost childlike need to be seen, understood, and applauded? You don't do it by shouting louder. You do it by getting quiet. You sit with silence. You let it stretch. You stop performing and start listening, not to them, but to yourself. You become your own audience. You stop creating for reaction and start creating for mastery. You stop chasing applause and begin chasing excellence. Slowly, your internal compass resets. It's not easy, because when you take a bold stand, when you say no to the crowd and yes to yourself, they will notice. They will whisper. They will mock. They will call you arrogant. They will call you difficult. But you keep building quietly, unshaken. You don't explain. You don't defend. You don't chase them down, begging for understanding. Because you've realized that if peace depends on being understood, you will never have peace. Some people don't need to understand you. They need to watch you. Imagine this. You plant your flag. You choose a path no one else believes in. They scoff. They step away. They label you cold. But you don't flinch. You keep building, day by day, quietly. And then, a year later, they return, curious, amazed, even confused. How did you do it? They ask. And you'll smile, not because you crave their approval now, but because you no longer need it. That smile, that peace, that quiet power, it came at a cost they'll never understand. They were too busy talking while you were too busy working. Ask yourself this. How much have you sacrificed just to be accepted? How many dreams watered down? How many opinions silenced? How many truths swallowed just to avoid ruffling feathers? And now that you've done it, was it worth it? Did their approval fill the emptiness in your chest? Or did it leave you even more hollow? Here's what no one tells you. You don't need their nod. You need your own. You don't need their applause. You need your conviction. You don't need their praise. You need your integrity. Because respect, real, lasting, earned respect, doesn't come from blending in. It comes from standing out. Not with noise, but with solidity, with consistency, with the quiet strength of someone who knows who they are, and no longer feels the need to explain it. You must learn to walk away from the applause, to let the clapping fade, to be at peace with the silence that follows. Because it's in that silence that your true voice begins to rise. It's there that your clarity sharpens. It's there you start doing work that actually matters. Not because it's popular, but because it's true. When you commit to truth over trend, mastery over approval, values over popularity, you become dangerous, unshakable, respected, even by those who never liked you. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing their approval is the moment they start giving it. Because the man who stands alone by choice is always watched. Not because he begs for attention, but because he represents something rare. Someone who doesn't fold, doesn't sway, doesn't mold himself to fit every expectation. He becomes a symbol of what others fear to be. And they watch, silently, secretly. Some envy, some admire, but all notice. So take the praise when it comes, but never depend on it. Let it pass through you, not define you. Because the moment you build your life around applause, you'll be forced to keep performing just to stay relevant. But when you build from truth, from values, from inner certainty, you stop performing. You start leading. And that is where real freedom begins. Make discomfort your daily guest. Every man wants to grow. He says it in different ways. I want more. I want to level up. I want to succeed. But when the moment arrives that demands discomfort, pressure, sweat, and nerve-wracking stretch, he hesitates. He delays. He chooses convenience. And convenience is seductive. It's warm. It's easy. It asks nothing, risks nothing. But in return, it gives even less. It traps a man in stillness, breeding softness, not only of body, but of thought, instinct, and character. Because growth and pain always walk hand in hand. There is no transformation without trial, no sharpening without friction. The man who truly wants to grow must choose discomfort, not once, but daily. He must become the man who rises early when his body begs for more sleep, who speaks truth when silence would be safer, who stays when every instinct whispers, run. He doesn't wait for discomfort to arrive, he seeks it. And not because he enjoys suffering, but because he knows the only way to stop fearing pressure is to face it by choice. The man who grows is the one who trains himself in the small battles, in the quiet daily decisions no one sees. He lifts the heavier weight, not because he has to, but because it teaches him something. He has the hard conversation, not because he enjoys conflict, but because he refuses to live in cowardice. He holds his posture, controls his expression, disciplines his appetite, not for drama or applause, but because it matters. He's learning to command himself. And a man who commands himself is a man who cannot be broken. So how do you act unhurt even when life throws its weight against you? You train. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. You wake to discomfort, you walk with it, you build through it. And with repetition, what once rattled you begins to feel familiar. It loses its edge, not because it's easier, but because you're stronger. You no longer panic when pressure knocks. You open the door and nod, because you expected it. Picture this. You're standing backstage about to address a crowd of strangers. Your palms sweat, your stomach tightens, and every part of you wants to run. But you don't. You breathe deep. You step forward. You speak. Your voice shakes, but you finish. You walk off stage, not the same man, but a braver one. The second time, your hands still tremble, but less. The third time, you speak with rhythm, with weight, with ownership. What changed? Not the stage, not the crowd. You did. You grew, not in comfort, but in resistance. So ask yourself, what have you been avoiding? What challenge have you tiptoed around, hoping it would vanish on its own? The conversation you've delayed, the dream you've shelved out of fear, the habit you know is softening you. That place where you keep saying, not today, that is the door. Behind that door is the very transformation you claim to want. Discomfort, when avoided, turns into a tormentor. It returns as regret, restlessness, and the slow erosion of pride. But when faced willingly, discomfort becomes a sculptor. It carves the man you're meant to be. It strips away the lies you've told yourself, the excuses you've protected, the softness that creeps in after years of avoiding the hard things. What remains is stone, muscle, and steel, not just in body, but in spirit. Growth doesn't come when it's convenient. It doesn't wait for calm days when you feel ready. It arrives at the edge, when you're tired, uncertain, and exposed. That is where you are reshaped, where the old version of you dies, and a sharper one begins to emerge. But only if you choose to stand there. Only if you choose to keep showing up. So don't wait for discomfort to force its way into your life as crisis. Invite it before it becomes suffering. Seek it, wrestle with it, train with it as a sparring partner, not as an enemy. Wake early to meet it. Take the cold shower. Hold your silence when your ego burns to speak. Tell the truth even when it stings. Start the project that terrifies you, and then repeat it tomorrow and the next day until discomfort is no longer a visitor, but a companion. With it, you can walk into any room, any trial, any storm, and you will not flinch. This isn't about masochism. It's about mastery. It's about refusing to let your life be dictated by what feels good. It's about building the inner structure that holds when the world does not. Because life will never spare you hardship. No matter how polite, careful, or well-liked you are, storms will come. And when they do, the man trained under pressure will not collapse. He will rise. He will carry the weight others drop. He will act unhurt, not because he feels nothing, but because he is trained through everything. So remember this, discomfort is not the enemy. It is the test, the teacher, the path. Invite it in. Let it carve you, sharpen you, strip away every excuse and every inch of softness. You were never meant to stay untouched. You were meant to be forged. And discomfort is the fire. Let time be your voice. You'll want to speak, to correct the lies, the careless words, the dismissals. You'll want to defend your name, your vision, your effort, because it stings. To be misunderstood, mocked, or counted out before you've had the chance to reveal who you truly are. And so everything in you wants to rise, to fight back, to explain yourself. But sometimes the strongest move, the wisest, most commanding choice, is to say nothing. To let silence speak, to let time do the talking. Because time doesn't lie. It doesn't play politics. It doesn't need permission. Time reveals, uncovers, confirms. And its silence becomes the answer to every critic who once rolled their eyes when your dream was only a sketch in your mind. The loudest man in the room often says the least in the long run. While he's busy performing, defending, justifying, posturing, the wise man is building, quietly, relentlessly. He understands that in the end, results carry more authority than any words ever could. When you are misjudged, misunderstood, or mocked, the temptation is to explain, to fire back, to prove them wrong right now. But true strength doesn't panic when it's underestimated. It doesn't scramble to correct those who cannot see yet. It stays steady. It continues the work. Because it knows, time will reveal everything. The seed planted in silence doesn't need to shout. It only needs to be nurtured, watered, and given time to break through the soil. And once it does, it cannot be ignored. Picture this. You've been overlooked for months, maybe even years. Passed over, counted out. People who once praised you have gone quiet, or worse, moved on without you. The spotlight has shifted elsewhere. But you don't chase it. You don't beg to be seen. You keep building, quietly, with grit and with focus. You stay on your path, not for their applause, but for your own standard. And then one day, without a word, your success enters the room before you do. It announces you before you arrive. Suddenly, the very ones who doubted you remember. They watch. They ask. But you don't need to say a thing, because the work already spoke. This is the power of patience, the discipline of restraint. You don't need to correct every rumor or prove every point. Because if you do, if you respond to every insult, every whisper, every jab, you'll drain the energy you need to build. You'll trade focus for attention, and attention always fades. But the man who waits, who keeps working in silence while others talk, becomes undeniable. Not through force, not through explanation, but through results, through quiet, consistent execution. So ask yourself honestly, are you trying to prove your worth too soon? Are you giving away your peace just to be validated now? What if the delay is your advantage? What if silence today leads to admiration tomorrow? In the moment, it's easy to forget, but the applause that comes after doubt always sounds louder. It carries weight because you didn't ask for it. You earned it. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them think you've stalled, failed, or disappeared. You know the truth. You know what's growing underground. And here's the thing, they don't. They can't. Because real growth doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself at every step. It's quiet, humble, yet more powerful than words. There is a storm building inside the man who was overlooked but stayed disciplined. There is a quiet thunder rising in the one who didn't defend himself, but built himself. And when time finally speaks on his behalf, it won't be a whisper. It will be thunder. It will be undeniable presence. It will be results that shake the room. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to explain your choices to those who were never meant to understand them. You don't need to rush your emergence. The oak tree never apologizes for taking longer than the weed. It knows what it's becoming. And so should you. Hold the line. Keep building. Stay silent when silence protects your peace. Time is your ally. If you stay the course, keep planting, watering, and growing. Don't hand over your energy to critics. Don't trade the long game for short validation. Because when time finally speaks for you, when the work you did in the dark steps into the light, it will speak with a force no argument can match. And in that moment, the silence you chose, the restraint you held, the patience you practiced will all make sense. What once felt like being ignored was actually protection. What felt like delay was preparation. What felt like being counted out was only the pause before your breakthrough. You don't need their permission. You don't need their understanding. You need your work, your focus, your faith. Stay the course. Trust the process. And let time do what it always does. Reveal what's real. Choose dignity over drama. Because there will always be drama. That's the nature of the world. Some people thrive on chaos the way a man thirsts for water in the desert. They stir conflict not because it's needed, but because it gives them a false sense of importance. It draws attention. It makes noise. And the higher you rise, the more of that noise you'll attract. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your composure threatens their comfort. Your silence unsettles them. Your refusal to engage leaves them exposed. And so they poke. They provoke. They pull. And if you're not disciplined, you'll get pulled in. Not because you truly care, but because reaction is tempting, especially when pride is touched. But the man who lives as if nothing hurts him doesn't chase noise. He doesn't need to clap back or outweep every jab. He understands something most people never learn. Dignity is the strongest form of dominance. And dignity is quiet. Dignity walks away, not from fear, but from strength. Because it stands above the argument. The truly powerful don't play in the mud. They don't lower their voice just to be heard by those unwilling to listen. They walk a higher road. And that road is never crowded. So how do you carry yourself with that kind of strength when everything inside you wants to retaliate? When someone questions your character or tries to humiliate you in front of others, you draw a higher circle around your life. You choose peace over poison. You say less, but you mean more. You don't explain yourself to everyone. You don't perform for every critic. You don't answer every false accusation. Why? Because you understand the difference between reaction and response. You understand that silence is not avoidance, it's authority. Picture this. You're in a crowded room, speaking your truth, minding your own business. Then someone hurls a cheap insult, loud, calculated. The room goes quiet. All eyes turn to you. They're waiting. Will you shout back? Will you take the bait? Instead, you smile. Not a smirk, but the calm smile of a man who knows his worth. You finish your sentence, steady, clear, and then move on. The insult fades. The crowd forgets the words thrown at you, but they remember your class, your control, your dignity. That is power. The world loves to measure men by their noise, but history remembers them for their discipline. Anyone can yell. Anyone can fight. Anyone can react. But the rare man is the one who stands still, rooted in the face of provocation, and does not flinch. Because he knows every time you engage in pettiness, you shrink your presence, you cheapen your energy. And once you trade dignity for dominance, you begin losing battles that were never yours to fight. Ask yourself honestly, how much time have you wasted proving yourself to people who never deserved a response? How many nights have you carried anger that should have been left in silence? How much energy have you poured into debates that changed nothing but your own peace? You don't need to win every argument. You need to win your day, and that begins with refusing to step into every trap laid at your feet. There's a difference between power and noise, between strength and struggle, between influence and impulse. The man who understands this difference earns respect, not because he forced it, but because he built it quietly, consistently, with grace under pressure. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them bait you into their drama. Let them mistake your silence for weakness. That is not your concern. Your concern is your mission, your discipline, your growth. Let them wrestle with their own noise. Let them spin in circles of conflict. You keep walking forward. Head high, feet steady, words few, work in motion. Because when dignity becomes your habit, peace becomes your lifestyle. And no one can take that from you. Not the loud, not the bitter, not even the powerful. Peace is earned in quiet decisions. The choice to stay calm, to walk away, and to let your results speak instead of your rage. That is a kind of power that can't be faked and can't be shaken. So when someone tries to humiliate you, insult you, or belittle your journey, don't play their game. Don't trade your composure for a moment of satisfaction. Don't let their chaos set your climate. Remember who you are. Remember what you're building. Smile, finish your sentence, and move on. Because in the end, the insult will fade, the jab will be forgotten. But your dignity will echo, and those who once laughed will watch. Those who mocked will remember. And the same people who thought you were too soft, too quiet, too calm will realize you weren't weak. You were simply too powerful to be distracted. Let your silence be your sword. Let your peace be your armor. And let your life, not your lips, be the loudest thing in the room. True power belongs to the one who waits. The strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He isn't the one who jumps first with an answer or forces the spotlight onto himself. His strength lives in his stillness, in the way he listens more than he speaks. It shows in how he observes before he engages, how he waits, not from doubt, but from calculation. Waiting, in a world that worships speed as success, is often mistaken for hesitation. But real waiting, the kind rooted in discipline and purpose, isn't weakness. It's power, wearing a quiet face. The man who waits understands something most overlook. Timing is everything, not just in war or business, but in life. Move too fast, and you stumble over what you didn't see. Speak too soon, and you reveal more than you needed. React too quickly, and you end up playing by someone else's rules. But the one who waits sees the whole board. He doesn't just notice what's happening, he understands why. He doesn't only hear people's words, he studies their patterns. And because he waits, he moves with clarity while others stumble in confusion. In a world obsessed with instant answers, instant reactions, and instant gratification, the man who can delay becomes rare. And anything rare holds power. We live in a culture that condemns slowness, mistakes silence for emptiness, and sees waiting as falling behind. But the truth is, when you wait, you don't fall back, you rise above. While the world rushes to act, to prove, to be first, you sharpen, you gather, you align. But how do you train yourself to wait in a world that's always pushing you to rush? You start where no one sees. You build patience in the shadows. You pause before you speak, especially when emotions run high. You breathe before you decide, especially under pressure. You let silence stretch, even when it feels uncomfortable, because silence teaches you to listen deeper. You practice staying calm when everyone else is reacting. Slowly, that calm becomes your default. Not because you're passive, but because you're in control. Patience isn't a gift you're born with. It's a habit you forge. And the more you practice it in small things, waiting a little longer before answering a message, taking a full day before making a decision, observing instead of rushing in, the more natural it becomes in the big moments. Moments come when everything is at stake, when all eyes are on you, when one impulsive move could cost something you can never get back. Picture this. You're offered a shortcut. Everyone else takes it, rushing ahead with laughter and confidence, convinced faster is always better. But you pause, not from fear, but from wisdom. You study the ground. You notice what they missed. You choose the longer path, the harder one. You take the time to lay each brick, building a foundation quietly, without applause, without an audience, just steady, consistent effort. And then, weeks or months later, the dust clears. The shortcut has collapsed. Those who rushed are scattered, and you are only beginning, stronger, sharper, unshaken. Power doesn't belong to the man who moves first. It belongs to the man who moves last, with precision. The one not rushed by noise, not baited by urgency. The one who acts not from impulse, but from intention. The man who waits doesn't wait forever. He simply waits until the time is right. Now, look back at your life. How many setbacks were born, not from real failure, but from haste? From acting before you saw the whole picture, from speaking before the room was ready, from reacting when you should have been still? What might have happened if you had waited? One more day, one more hour. How much damage could you have avoided? How much stronger would your choice have been? The discipline of waiting is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. It's active, intentional, and rooted in the refusal to be moved by panic, pressure, or popularity. Because when you rush to match the world's tempo, you lose your rhythm. But when you trust your own timing, your actions carry weight. Strategic, focused, unstoppable. So let others scramble for quick wins. Let them measure themselves by how fast they move. You measure yourself by how well you move. Let them talk just to be heard. You speak so you'll be remembered. Let them chase everything. You move only toward what matters. Waiting is not an activity. It is preparation, positioning, power conserved, not power withheld. And when the moment arrives, when the ground is steady, the target clear, and the move is yours to make, you strike, not with noise, but with impact. The man who waits, not from fear but from faith, is the man who leads. Faith in his path, faith in his process, faith that what is meant for him will come. No moment of silence is wasted if it's used to sharpen the sword. So wait, watch, listen, prepare, and when your time comes, move like thunder. Rejection shapes the man who cannot be broken. You will hear no in boardrooms, in unanswered messages, in the cold silence of being ignored. You will be turned away, not because you lack worth, but because most people cannot see what you see. You will be misjudged by strangers, overlooked by friends, and criticized by those who haven't built a fraction of what you're building. This is not a flaw in the path, it is the path. The price of aiming higher than most dare is walking roads few will ever understand. And what separates the great from the forgotten is not talent, luck, or applause. It's how they handle rejection. Rejection is a universal language. It meets every dreamer at the door, arms crossed, asking, "Do you really want this, or did you just hope it would be easy?" Most turn back. Most hear no, and assume it means never. But those who rise hear it differently. They feel the sting, but they keep moving. They hear no, and translate it as not yet. They adjust their footing, sharpen their tools, and keep walking. Rejection only defines you if you let it. It is not a final verdict, not a mirror of your worth. It is a test of how deeply you believe in a vision no one else can see. Rejection tests your hunger, your grit, your stamina. It asks again and again, are you serious or just pretending? The strongest men you admire, the legends, the icons, the leaders, they all share one thing. They learn to use rejection, not as fuel for anger, but as pressure to grow. When a door slams in your face, you have two choices. You can shrink or you can strengthen. You can wear rejection like a wound, or you can study it, refine your approach, and return sharper. Every no has the power to shape your yes if you let it teach you instead of torment you. So how do you act unhurt when the world shuts a door you were ready to walk through? You stop taking rejection personally. You stop seeing it as insult and start seeing it as instruction. You tell yourself, this is redirection, this is refinement, this is training. You learn to thank the closed doors, not because you enjoy them, but because they build a strength no easy yes ever could. They shape the will to knock again, harder, wiser, better prepared. Picture this. You share your vision with someone you admire, expecting them to understand. Instead, they laugh, they dismiss, they say you're reaching too far. And yes, it stings because you exposed a piece of your heart. But here's the difference. You don't stay hurt. You move. You go to the next door, and then the next, asking again and again. You keep going, not because you enjoy rejection, but because what you're building is bigger than your ego. And one day, the same people who said no will come back. They'll want to join, claiming they always knew you had something. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember the silence, the doubt, the rejection. And you'll smile, not in bitterness but in peace, because rejection didn't break you, it built you. Ask yourself honestly, have you let rejection uproot your purpose? Have you buried dreams because a few people didn't believe? Or have you allowed rejection to refine your plan, to shape it, sharpen it, and stretch it? Rejection holds a strange power. It reveals who is serious. It exposes cracks in your foundation. It burns away the parts of you still unsure, still craving applause. And what remains? Someone dangerous. Someone who won't fold just because the room stayed silent. Rejection isn't pleasant, but it is useful. It exposes weakness, tests your resilience, and demands a choice. Will you keep moving, or will you quit now that it's hard? If you only advance when doors open easily, you'll never go far. The biggest doors are the hardest to unlock, and sometimes you don't wait for them to open. You build your own. Let rejection build you. Let it challenge you. Let it strip away every illusion, every excuse, every piece of you waiting for permission. Let it prove how badly you want what you claim to want. Because the man who stops fearing rejection becomes unstoppable. When rejection no longer shakes your identity, you walk differently, you ask differently, you live differently. You don't crumble when they say no. You collect data. You learn what didn't work. You reframe, recalibrate, and knock again. And here's what most never see. Every no sharpens the blade. Every closed door strengthens your knock. You learn patience. You learn persistence. And above all, you learn faith. Faith in what you're building, even when no one else can see it yet. Because greatness doesn't bloom in applause. It blooms in silence, in rejection, in the nights you wonder if you're crazy for believing so deeply in something no one claps for yet. And then one day it happens. Not all at once, but doors begin to open. Respect comes, recognition follows. They'll say you came out of nowhere, but you know better. You came from rejection, from being told no, and showing up anyway. So the next time someone shuts you out, look them in the eye and thank them silently. They've just given you another rep, another scar that hardens into strength, another reminder that opinions can't break you. Keep knocking. Keep moving. Let rejection polish your vision until it's undeniable. And remember, you are not here to be accepted by everyone. You are here to be undeniable to yourself. Once you believe that no rejection can stop you, you rise without announcement. Most people want to be seen rising. They crave recognition at the first step, not the finish line. They post updates, announce goals, not always out of commitment, but to give the appearance of progress. They confuse visibility with value. But the most powerful men, the ones who create real impact, don't rise that way. They don't call attention to themselves while still building. They rise in silence, step by step, without spotlight, without noise, without applause. They move like shadows, quiet and deliberate, and by the time anyone notices, it's too late to stop them. To act as if nothing hurts you doesn't mean pretending you feel nothing. It means not handing the world a front row seat to your inner battles. It means building your empire in silence. It means making progress without explanation, healing without broadcasting it, and growing without asking anyone to witness it. Your silence becomes your strength. Your routine becomes your rebellion. Your focus becomes your fire. How does a man do that in a world that rewards noise? How does he rise without needing attention to fuel him? He turns inward. He learns to wake before the sun, not because someone is watching, but because he is. He keeps his own promises, not for praise, but for power. He picks up the book, lifts the weight, faces the mirror, not to show off, but to transform. He stops talking about his next move and starts making it, quietly, consistently, in the dark. This kind of man knows something rare. What's built in silence lasts longer. It isn't held together by applause, but by discipline. It doesn't crumble under criticism because it was never fed by validation. It's not performance, it's process, and process doesn't need an audience. It needs commitment. Picture this. Months go by and you don't post a thing. No declarations, no updates, no explanations. Just you and the work. You train, you study, you build, you break, you rebuild. You push through doubt without a cheer squad. Day after day, in complete silence. Then one day, without announcement, your life shifts. A promotion, a business launch, a new way you walk, speak, and carry yourself. People notice. They whisper. They ask, where did this come from? But they won't understand. They didn't see the early mornings, the missed parties, the long nights, the sacrifices, the pain, the process. They weren't there when you were empty, confused, questioning everything, but still showing up. All they see now is the result. But you know what it took? That's the beauty of silent growth. No one can take it from you, because no one gave it to you. Every inch, every breath, every ounce of respect now tied to your name was earned in silence. In the hours no one applauded, in the choices no one saw, in the rooms you entered alone. Now ask yourself, are you chasing growth or just the appearance of it? Are you working to truly evolve or to be seen evolving? Do you share your journey because you're proud of it or because you need others to validate it? These questions cut deep, but they reveal the truth. When you chase the appearance of progress, you spend more time looking successful than becoming it. But when you pursue the substance of growth, you don't need to look like anything. You become everything. What would happen if you stopped announcing your goals and simply lived them? What if your only proof was your discipline? What if your only drive was who you are becoming, not who is watching? You'd discover a different fuel, quiet, steady, but far more powerful. You'd grow consistent, not because someone clapped, but because quitting is no longer an option. You'd become dangerous in the best way, unshakable, independent, unstoppable. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop announcing, you start advancing. When you no longer feel the need to talk about it, you free up the energy to do it. No wasted words. No false starts. Just forward motion, silent steps that shake the ground without warning. The world is loud. It rewards those who shout, but it follows those who build. And the man who rises in silence becomes what few ever achieve, a force. A force that doesn't ask to be seen, a force that cannot be denied. Because by the time he arrives, his presence is undeniable. He doesn't walk in explaining where he's been. He walks indifferent, and everyone feels it. So turn inward, do the work, hold your tongue, build in silence, and let the silence stretch longer than feels comfortable. That silence will shape you in a way nothing else can. It forges a new version of you, one no one expected. That is true power, not the kind that needs a stage, but the kind that creates its own. And when you refuse to react, you dominate. The world will try to provoke you, not by chance, but by design. Some provoke for power, others for sport. They push, prod, and poke, not because they see weakness, but because they're searching for it. They want to know your buttons, to see if they can move you, sway you, shake you. The moment you react, you hand them a map to your emotions. You show where your boundaries are soft, where your discipline cracks, where your peace can be stolen. Without realizing it, you're no longer steering your own ship, they are. But when you stop reacting, when you choose stillness over shouting, clarity over chaos, control over impulse, the game changes. The dynamic flips. They're left with nothing to feed on, no chaos to exploit, no emotions to harvest. The man who refuses to react doesn't just stay unaffected, he begins to dominate. Not by force, but by presence. Not because he's desperate for control, but because he already holds it within. Reacting is easy, it's instant, emotional, but it's also surrender. It means you've let someone else set the rhythm of your mind. It means you've allowed them to steer your focus, your energy, your day. That isn't power. It's a kind of imprisonment. But resisting the urge to react, that is higher discipline, a rare strength. And it begins with awareness. You must remember that most provocations are bait. They're not invitations to truth or challenges worth meeting. They're traps, carefully laid and emotionally charged, designed not to elevate you, but to entangle you. So before you respond, pause. Ask yourself, what will it cost me to react? My focus, my time, my peace, my dignity? Then ask, what do they gain if I respond? If the answer is anything more than zero, don't give it. Picture this. You're in a meeting. Someone cuts you off, talks down to you, questions your intelligence with a smirk. You feel it burn in your chest, that urge to snap back, to defend your pride. But instead, you stay calm. You finish your sentence, not louder, but clearer. You complete your task, not faster, but better. And you don't even acknowledge the insult. You let it hang in the air, unsupported and ignored. The one who delivered it deflates, because what they came for, your reaction, never arrived. And so they move on. Not because you lost, but because you refused to play. That's real power. The kind that doesn't shout, but stands firm in the face of ego and says, I don't bend for noise. Now ask yourself, how many times have you handed power to someone just by reacting? How many hours have you wasted in arguments that never mattered? How often has clarity slipped away because someone pushed you just enough to knock you off balance? The truth is, they never had power. You gave it to them the moment you stepped into their storm. But what if you ignored it? Not from weakness, not from fear, but from choice? What if you decided not every insult deserves a reply, not every comment needs correction, not every person must be proven wrong? Some people don't need to be confronted, they need to be outgrown. Because what you react to owns you. But what you rise above, you master. Mastery means walking away, not because you've lost, but because you refuse to lose yourself. It means saving your fire for what builds you, not what burns you. It means staying fixed on your mission while others drown in the noise. You will be tested. People will talk. They'll bait you with sarcasm, provoke you with gossip, and challenge you with ignorance. The temptation will rise to meet their energy, to fight fire with fire. But every time you resist, you strengthen something deeper inside. You become more centered, more grounded, unshakable. Let others react. Let them burn themselves out chasing control. You, on the other hand, build power through restraint, through patience, through strategy. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't engage every spark, because you've learned what they haven't. Not every fight is worth fighting, and not every opponent deserves your presence. This isn't passivity, it's precision. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to watch. The strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He's the one who feels the fire rise and still chooses not to burn. So hold your posture. Withhold your fire. Let your silence unsettle them. Let your calm confuse them. And let your discipline win battles words never could. Because when you stop reacting, you stop giving others control of your story. And once you take that control back, fully, quietly, completely, no one can take it from you again. That's when you rise above their noise. You live beyond it. Act like a mountain, still, unyielding. A mountain doesn't flinch at wind, tremble under thunder, or argue with clouds. It doesn't beg the storm to be gentle. It stands silent, immovable. Its power is not in volume, but in presence. It doesn't need words to be respected. It doesn't need proof to be known. It simply is. And in a world driven by noise, panic, reaction, and speed, that kind of presence is rare and powerful. This is the presence you must develop. Calm, steady, unyielding, like a mountain. You were taught that strength means being louder, faster, more reactive. That to command attention, you must shout. That to be seen as powerful, you must constantly prove yourself. But real power doesn't move that way. Real power is anchored. It doesn't chase validation or waste energy explaining its worth. It knows. It lives in a body trained to slow down, to breathe, to listen before it acts. And when it finally moves, the entire room notices. Not because it demands attention, but because it commands it. You don't need to answer every threat. You don't need to react to every slight. Some men carry strength in motion, quick, aggressive, always moving. But others, the ones with the deepest power, carry it in stillness. They've trained their nerves to stay steady when provoked. They've built a foundation so stable that even when the world shakes, they do not. You must learn both. Move like fire, but stand like stone. And before you master fire, you must master stillness. So how do you become like the mountain? You stop rushing. You stop letting urgency dictate your behavior. You slow your movements, not out of laziness, but out of intent. You walk with purpose, as someone moving towards something, not running away. You let your thoughts settle. You stop answering noise with more noise. You observe before you speak. You pause before you commit. You don't chase outcomes, you attract them. Not by proving, but by becoming. Not by pleading, but by embodying. When a man truly owns himself, the world responds differently. Not because he declares it, but because people feel it. Picture this. You're in a meeting. The discussion grows tense. Someone throws a challenge your way. Suddenly, all eyes turn to you, waiting. You feel the pull, the urge to defend, to dominate, to react. But you don't. You pause. You breathe. You let the silence stretch a second longer than comfort allows. Then, with measured calm, you deliver one sentence. No force, no anger, just truth. And the room shifts. Not because you raised your voice, but because you didn't. It was your stillness. In that calm, everyone else felt their own noise. In your restraint, they saw strength. This is the art of stillness. It's not weakness, not passivity. It's clarity. A discipline that unsettles others. Not because it's loud, but because it's unshakable. The man who trains himself to be composed, to speak little but mean every word, becomes a presence impossible to ignore. Not because he imposes, but because his calm reveals their chaos. So ask yourself, do you want to be a wave, loud, impressive for a moment, crashing hard but always pulled back by winds of emotion? Or do you want to be a mountain, silent, immovable, commanding without effort? The wave excites, but the mountain endures. The wave is noticed, but the mountain is respected. To be the mountain means facing storms without fear, letting critics shout, letting others panic and scramble while you remain steady. It means holding your posture. It means keeping your fire where it belongs, inside, not spilling out every time someone tests you. It means making your presence felt without forcing it. And when you do speak, your words come from certainty, not insecurity. This is not the path most men choose, because stillness is hard. It takes more strength to hold your ground than to throw a punch. More discipline to say nothing than to defend every blow. But the man who learns this path discovers power that doesn't fade. He becomes the one others lean toward. Not the center of attention, but the center of gravity. The one who doesn't need to shout to be heard, rush to get ahead, or argue to be right. Like the mountain, he doesn't explain his silence, because his presence says everything. So train yourself. Let the world rage, let the winds blow, let the storms roar. While the noise tries to move you, you stand. Speak little, observe more, move with purpose. And when you act, let it be like a mountain shifts, slow, certain, impossible to ignore. That is not weakness, and it's not hiding. It is the posture of real power. Once you hold it, the world no longer pulls you. You stop living in reaction and begin living above it. Unshaken, unmoved, unmistakable. Stop explaining yourself to small minds. Every time you justify yourself to someone who's already decided against you, you're not convincing them. You're draining yourself. Justification may sound harmless, a quick defense, a short clarification. But beneath it, you're handing over something far more valuable than time. You're giving away your power. Because when you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you've already entered a game you cannot win. You're trying to plant clarity in soil that only grows judgment. There will always be men, often loud and insecure, who will never understand your silence. They won't grasp why you avoid gossip, why you stopped explaining every move, or why you stay quiet when others fight for attention. They don't understand ambition unless it's loud, discipline unless it's announced, or calm unless it's forced. But that's not your burden. You were never meant to be everyone's translator. You don't have to turn up your volume just because someone else can't hear what you're building in silence. The truth is, you don't owe the world your plans. You don't owe acquaintances your logic. You don't need to pause your progress to explain your vision to people only invested in their own comfort. The higher you climb, the less explanation you owe. Because those who matter, those who are serious, those who see with the right eyes, already notice. They feel the shift. They see the change in your presence. And those who demand explanations? Most aren't seeking to understand. They're searching for ammunition. They want cracks in your confidence to exploit, words they can twist, reasoning they can undermine. Not every question is sincere. Not every curiosity is innocent. So how do you respond when people question your direction, your change, or your distance from who you used to be? You let them wonder. You don't hand them the script. You don't break your rhythm to narrate your transformation. You stay focused. You keep moving. You let silence say what words never could. Protect your mission. Because your duty isn't to satisfy their curiosity, it's to honor your purpose. Your loyalty is to your vision. And as you rise, you'll discover that true power is often misunderstood. That's fine. Let it be. Picture this. You've changed your habits. You wake up early, stop complaining, stop gossiping. You no longer show up to every argument, every distraction, every invitation to mediocrity. You've become intentional, quiet, disciplined. And now people are confused. They say, "Why are you so quiet lately?" You've changed. You think you're better. But you don't defend yourself. You don't explain your inner revolution with charts or speeches. You just smile, not from arrogance, but from peace. Because you've finally learned something. You don't need to explain a thing. In time, they'll see it. The same people who doubted your silence will one day look at the results and ask, "How did he do it?" And even then, you won't owe them an answer. That's the shift. Ask yourself this. How many words have you wasted trying to prove what time would have proven for you? How much energy have you poured into defending your growth to people who never wanted you to grow in the first place? How many detours have you taken just to give peace of mind to those who never deserved it? You can't win the approval of those committed to misunderstanding your journey. And even if you could, would it be worth the cost? Every time you stop to explain, you slow down. Every time you justify, you dilute your conviction. Slowly, you begin to walk not with confidence, but with caution, afraid to be misunderstood, afraid to be misread, afraid to stand alone in your purpose. But real purpose is lonely. Not forever, not always. But in the beginning, absolutely. Growth doesn't come with a crowd. Breakthrough doesn't arrive with applause. Transformation doesn't come with understanding. It comes in silence, in isolation, in discomfort. If you keep waiting for permission or clarity from others before moving, you'll never move. Let them stay confused. Let them build theories and whisper. While they talk, you build. While they judge, you work. While they guess, you become. Let your life answer their questions, your character correct their assumptions, and your results silence their doubt. A man on a mission doesn't stop to explain every step of his journey. He walks quietly, steadily, without fanfare or commentary, until the world adjusts, not because he demanded attention, but because his silence became too loud to ignore. And when they finally ask, "Why didn't you say anything?" you'll look at what you've built, at who you've become, and realize you never needed to. Some things aren't meant to be explained. They're meant to be witnessed. So speak less, build more. Defend nothing. Walk with certainty, knowing your silence isn't emptiness. It's energy directed forward, where it matters most. Walk through fire without leaving ashes. A man who acts as if nothing hurts isn't pretending to be stone. He isn't numb, and he isn't blind to pain. He has simply walked through the kind of fire most run from and emerged with his soul intact. He has been burned, tested, pierced by life in ways that would break the unprepared. But he didn't shatter. More importantly, he didn't become what tried to break him. That kind of man, calm in crisis, silent in betrayal, composed in chaos, is not cold. He is forged like steel, tempered by fire, shaped under pressure, cooled in silence. Pain did not pass him by. It confronted him, challenged him, threatened to consume him, but he kept moving. Through disappointment, heartbreak, betrayal, hardship, and loss, he didn't emerge untouched, but he came out unowned. This is the final transformation, not just to endure, but to rise unmarked where it matters most. To walk through fire without turning to ash. To carry the lesson without the bitterness. It means remembering the blow without reliving the damage. Looking at everything that hurt you and saying, "You sharpen me, but you don't define me." Because fire is not the enemy, it is the test. It's not the pain that ruins you, but the way you respond to it. It's how long you carry it, and what you choose to carry. If you drag every betrayal, every insult, every heartbreak, wearing scars like trophies, then you haven't survived the fire. You've become it. But if you walk through and choose your load wisely, you master your transformation. You leave behind what weakens you and take only what sharpens you. The clarity, the boundaries, the knowledge, the stillness, while discarding the smoke, the grudges, the bitterness. Think of betrayal, not a misunderstanding or small offense, but a deep fracture that once would have broken you. Years ago, it might have sent you spiraling, demanding justice or closure. But not now. Now you nod, stay silent, and move forward. No speeches, no retaliation, just the deliberate steps of a man who has learned to let silence protect his peace. And people notice. They wait for your outburst, your explosion, but it never comes. Because you've learned what most never do. You don't need to perform your pain or prove how deeply you were hurt. You only need to continue, unshaken. That quiet continuation becomes your shield. It becomes your power, the evidence that you've outgrown the damage. Ask yourself, are you still clutching old burns? Are you dragging ashes from fires that died years ago? Do those moments still shape how you trust, how you live? Or are you using those flames to forge a sharper edge? Pain will either build you or bury you, and the choice is yours. Don't collect ashes. Don't hold on to smoke. Rise from it. Rising doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it never happened. It means choosing to evolve. It means deciding your identity won't be defined by suffering, but by how you moved through it. The fire tried to take everything from you, and it failed. That alone is enough. The world will keep testing you with setbacks, betrayals, losses, and doubts. Let it, because now you know the truth. It's not about what the fire does to you, but what you do with it. Let it burn away weakness, melt ego, refine vision, but never let it take your soul. Don't let it twist your heart. Don't let it turn you into someone who hurts others just because you were hurt. That's not strength, that's surrender. True strength is quiet. It doesn't flinch at pain or announce survival. It endures, evolves, and keeps moving forward without explanation. It's the man who has every right to be angry but chooses peace. Who has every right to seek revenge but chooses progress. Who has every right to shut down but keeps showing up. This is what it means to be unhurt. Not untouched, not invincible, but undefeated. To be struck and still stand. To be cut and still love. To be burned and still build. And when people look at you and ask, how did you survive that? You won't need to explain. They'll see it in your posture, your discipline, your stillness. In the way you no longer shout, prove, or defend. In the way you carry yourself. Not as someone who escaped the fire, but as someone who mastered it. So let the fire come. Let life test you. Let the storms howl. Let the winds rise. Let the pressure mount. And when it's over, when the smoke clears, don't return burned, return shining. You weren't made to crumble, you were made to rise. The world may burn around you, but if your mind is forged in the right fire, nothing can consume you. The world will keep testing you through words, actions, and silence. But you owe no reaction. You've learned to stand still as storms pass, to keep your power where it belongs, with you. This is not about pretending, it's about rising above. So wear your calm as armor, let your silence speak louder than chaos. And never forget, the one who cannot be hurt cannot be controlled. Walk forward, unbothered, unbreakable, unstoppable. Wishing you health, happiness, and remember to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.